Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's it going? Well, it's morning for me. It may not be morning where you are, but it's morning for me. How's it going this morning? My name is Dave Wilber, and my friends call me a lot of things. They call me the Turfgrass Zealot. They call me the Wilber Force. They call me Bear. I've got my bear in the background back here just for fun. How are you guys doing? And I appreciate this. I've had this idea. Let's talk about this. Let's talk. Hey, let's talk. I've had this idea for a long time. Years, actually. I wanted to sit down and I wanted to kind of show you guys when I do the podcast how I do it when I do the monologue part of it. And the idea just kind of bloomed from there. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool, if I just invited everybody into the studio? And my studio has always been something, it's been part of my world since, I don't know, the first one I built was probably 2005. And I had an audio recording set up, a recording deal with using Pro Tools and Logic and all that sort of stuff, and anything that is part of modern music making. I've always been a recording fan. My favorite Christmas gift when I was a kid, my mom bought me a tape recorder. And I don't know exactly what happened, but I ended up with two of them. I think somebody else bought me one. I had one for a while, and I would record stuff. I would sing, whatever, record me talking to the dog, all that sort of stuff. I was an only child, so it was like you had to find your own entertainment. And we lived some miles away from town and all that sort of stuff. It's a pretty cool existence. So I had these two tape recorders, right? So what I would do is I would, record some music or something on one of them and then some voice on the other. And I would go back and forth and I would create tracks that way. And I had whole radio shows. So that was kind of cool. When a radio station opened in my hometown in rural Colorado, one of my friend's dads was involved with the radio station. I said, hey, can you introduce me to your dad? And he was like, why? And I said, because I want to be in the radio. And he just laughed at me. Well, I'll introduce you, he said. So his father decided I was pretty cool. And I got to meet all the air staff and stuff. It wasn't a very big deal. To me, it was the biggest deal. And I think they were happy to see me show up because I was willing to work whatever. I was a senior in high school, right? So I had some extra time. I had kind of a half-day schedule, so they would have me work the overnights, like 6 p.m. or 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I would do that. I was also working at the golf course. I was also working at Pole Creek Golf Club for Mike Kozak. And you can see some stories about that on the Earthworks podcast, where both Mike and I have been guests recently. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. So Mike wanted me to, keep working at the golf course, right? I've been working for him for 2 seasons already. And I said, well, I want to do this radio thing. And he said, well, you figure it out. He didn't give me any guidelines. So the way I would work is I told him when I could work. So I'd go to the golf course and, I think we started at 5 or 5:30. And I'd work till we were done at, 2:30, whatever that was. And then it was a 30-minute drive to the radio station from where we were. And my girlfriend worked at the A&W, which was halfway between the two. So I would stop and see her and grab something to eat and go, and I would work. I think at the time I was working 6 p.m. to midnight at the radio station. 5-6 nights a week. And I would work till midnight, and then I would drive home and I would go to sleep and I'd get up and do it all over again. Everyone thought I was crazy. I loved it. The chance to play music and be on the radio, I was horrible. Oh, I've been looking and looking and looking. Somewhere in my stuff, somewhere are the tapes from some of that. Oh my God, I was horrible. But I had this love for music, and I had this, I had this desire, and desire got me a long way. So then I ended up, when I went to college in Sterling, Colorado, I worked at the radio station there, a local top 40 station. And I worked weekends and sometimes overnights, and gave some of the air staff there a chance to do that. So it was a good way to do that continuing on college. And it was kind of funny because, we were doing top 40 radio, right? So it was all the hits, right? And, Bananarama. And I started to develop that kind of radio voice, that thing where you talk like this. And, hey, it's 72 degrees outside. What are you doing? Take off that coat. And I would, I can do all that stuff. So stupid radio tricks. All right. Well, let's move forward. Enough about me for a second. What I wanted to do is talk about what my plans are for media creation and all that sort of stuff, and share that with you guys. And feel free to bring in the chat if you're watching. I have the viewer counts turned off everywhere, so I don't know who's watching. Doesn't, but I'd love it if you'd say hi. Use your chat function to say hi. This is my first time streaming on Twitch and on YouTube at the same time. So from a technical standpoint, I don't know if I'm getting it right or not, but we'll see. There was really no way to test it other than hit the button and go. Anyway, I've always done this podcast, or at least I've done this blog for TurfNet, and TurfNet's been amazing. And Peter McCormick and all the guys at TurfNet, shout out to them. Great people. Peter gave me a chance to use my voice to write and use my writing in a good way. And I've had that opportunity in the golf business and the Turfgrass business for a while now. And hey, good morning, 7 Iron. How are you this morning? So I've always had a chance to write, and then we decided that we were going to kind of do a podcast thing, and that was maybe a little bit before podcasts were becoming super popular and everybody had one. And actually, I think the way that worked is they asked me to step in for something that they were doing, and Peter said, well, if you want to build something that you do, that's great. So I kind of reformatted my audio setup to become a podcast thing. And then we did that for a while for TurfNet. It was great. I don't know how many episodes. And TurfNet was really, really, really good to me. What I started to see everybody had a podcast. And I thought, man, I want to do this different. I just want to do this different. So fast forward to some conversations I had with friends and stuff, and as COVID-19 was getting going, it was like, what are you going to do, Dave? And I said, well, I think I want to do this live stream thing, and I don't know if TurfNet will pick it up or whatever, but I want to produce it. I wasn't worried about sales or sponsorships or any of that sort of thing. And I started to build the setup that you see here. I'll post some pictures of it looking my direction, but I've got 5 monitors, I've got 2 cameras, I've got lights, I got bear stuff. It's really cool, it's really different, and it took a while to get all this together, and quite frankly I was scared to death of it. There came a point where it was like, I don't know what this is going to turn into. So what I thought I would do is I would enter into the gaming space a little bit, because I've always been a gamer, and I thought, well, I'll test this equipment and get everything running and get it sounding, looking, doing what I want it to do, and do some gamer streaming. And that's what I've been doing for the last couple of months. It took me almost 5 months to get all the gear and everything kind of set up. And of course, I'm financing this out of my own pocket with COVID going on, where I'm really not working as much as I usually did, because I'm not traveling as much as I did as an agronomist. So, the idea to produce some content, do some YouTube stuff, all that sort of stuff, it just wouldn't go away. One of those things where it wouldn't go away. And I think when things wouldn't don't go away. You got to stay with it. You got to say, well, this is how it works. So that's what I did. And so that brings me to here. And what I really want to be doing here is twice a week. I'm going to do this kind of video podcast kind of thing. The format is going to be pretty simple. It's going to be me, some music, some media. We'll probably watch a little YouTube here and there. And I think I'll just, I may have guests. I may not have guests. I don't know. I don't know how that guest thing is going to go. That seems to be the tried and true podcast formula. Well, I'm going to get a guest and we're going to have a chat. And I love it, right? I've been guests. I've done, a bunch of them. I love it. I do. I love it. But I don't know, man. I just feel like I want to produce something a little bit more that was, that's been in my head. I think there's something here to this kind of vidcasting, broadcasting, whatever you want to call it. And I'm happy about it. So I'm super stoked. And it's been a long year for all that. All right, so that's the story. What am I going to call it? Well, the morning setup has rung a bell with a few people just because, that's kind of what we do, right? The problem I see with that, and the reason that I've been hesitant about that, is because morning comes at different times all over the world. It's morning for me. Watching the sun come up right now. That's great. But it's not morning in the UK. It's not morning in Asia. It's different types of mornings in the States. Canada, same story. Brian Youre says that I am an honorary Canadian now. So Miranda Robinson, Brian Youre, and a bunch of those guys. So that's pretty cool. Hey, speaking of that. So this group of people that have been really focusing on mindfulness, mental health, mental wellness, and all that sort of stuff. It's been kind of a cool thing. We've been invited now to do. I was invited to be part of that, and we did the British Columbia Golf Course Superintendents Association virtual conference. And it was awesome, and it was done by Zoom. I don't always love Zoom. I've spent way too much time on Zoom this year. But in that situation, it was awesome. People were there. They were asking questions. It was, great golf course superintendent types. I loved it, man. I really did. I thought, wow, this is fun. And we're doing that same thing. We are doing that same thing for the GIS next week, I believe. Yeah, next week. Seems like it's next week. Watch this space for the dates and all that stuff. I probably should know this, shouldn't I? Let's see. I don't know if I can find it real quick or not. See what my calendar says. I don't know, somewhere it's here. Let's see. February what? February 4th. February 4th. And the GIS schedule is on the GCSA website and all that sort of stuff. So you guys probably know it better than I just know that I have February 4th blocked out for that. I think we have a couple of Zoom rehearsals and so yeah, that's it. That's it. That's what I'm doing. That's pretty cool with the GIS. And so it's going to be myself and Miranda Robinson. Brian Youre is going to moderate. Miranda, Mo Robinson, Paul McCormack, Jason Haynes, all these great Canadians, myself, and we're going to talk about emotional wellness, mental health, and all that sort of stuff. And they've invited a therapist to join us too. So we've got an actual expert. I don't know. Actual experts don't always speak turfgrass, so we'll see how that goes for her. Interlopers amongst the turf heads isn't always a good program for the interlopers or the turf heads. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's next week, and we'll see what we can do. Maybe I can record it from my end. I wonder if I can do that. That'll be kind of fun. I might have some copyright issues with everybody else by doing that, but I have the technology. The gear is here. We could do that. We could do that. Right? Ooh, good idea. Good idea. All right, so let's talk for just a second. I'm watching the time. I'm just watching myself here, and I got my kind of list of things we're going to do. So what else are we going to do with this? Well, I think we're going to consume a little bit. We're going to look at if there's controversial stuff going on in golf. We might check into that. We might just laugh at the world a little bit. We might make fun of the world. We might make fun of each other. We might see me make fun of whatever I feel like. We'll probably look at some music and do some music stuff because that's part of my whole deal. Good morning, Micah Woods. Micah Woods dropping in. I love that. Thank you for the follow. So yeah, we'll probably have some fun with that. We'll do some music. We'll do some things like that. I don't know if you can see, but I got a couple of bass guitars hanging in the back. You never know, and I may produce something live right here for you guys. So that's part of it. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for being here. And if you're not watching the chat, please do. And some of you may not be watching this live, and that's just fine. So that's what the whole plan is here. The plan is that there is no plan. The plan is that I spoke, and I'm not trying to be ageist here. I'm trying to be ageist here. Watch me very carefully. I'm not trying to be ageist. But I spoke to some younger people in our business, supers, assistants, and stuff, and I said, you know what works for you? And they're like, well, we like YouTube, and we like, we don't always get a watch, but we can listen no matter what. And I went, okay, yeah, I'm starting to get it. And I've always been pretty up to date on tech, so I started to hear what they were saying. I started to see how that could be put into action and what I want to do with this. As far as the morning setup goes, you'll be able to watch it on YouTube, and we'll keep those recordings and keep those vlogs and all that sort of stuff. And that's one of the reasons for the kind of the funky music here is that it's got to be copyright free. It's got to be able to clear, or I'll get copyright struck and the thing will be over before it starts. So that's how it goes. 4 or 5 days a week on Twitch, I'm gonna live stream, and part of that will be in the gaming space because that's what I like to do. But also there'll be some let's just chat kind of stuff there. So that's gonna happen. So that's the plan. But as far as the YouTube thing, then we'll produce, some other videos and some stuff and Dave on the World type things that are just YouTube videos, and we'll do that as well. So not everything's going to be live because again, all over the world, it's a different time. So we'll figure that out. All right, shout out to Epidemic Sound. Epidemic Sound is copyright-free music of all kinds, and I'm not sponsored by them in any way or anything like that, but I love what they've done to put some great artists out there and all that sort of stuff, and I'm hoping maybe I'll produce a few things and have them on an Epidemic Sound playlist, so that's pretty cool. I was hoping that I had picked stuff that didn't have vocals in it, so we'll have to see if we can, I don't know, can we deal with that? Come on, Epidemic Sound. I don't want a vocal in there. Let's do this. There we go. I can't have some guy singing when I'm trying to talk. My gosh. So yeah, the entire thing is all being done by my bootstraps. It's all being done because I just want to try something, and I'm gonna, and it's not just try. Like this is I'm pretty well invested emotionally, financially, and all that. This is what we're doing right now. And I think when you go all in with anything, as you turf heads well know, it often, you figure out real quick what's supposed to happen and what's not going to happen and all that. That's what I think. So, okay. So that's the chatter. Let's get to, what I want to do is I want to cover a really important topic. And I talked before, about mental health. And I talked about the panel that has been so kind to include me, and really it's been kind of the brainchild of Paul McCormack, who writes the Mindful Superintendent stuff and does the seminars and all that. And just Paul is such a great guy. Like, I got a note from Paul a little bit ago that said, sorry I can't make it. I got a doctor's appointment I really wanted to watch. How can I watch later? And so, Paul, this is for you. You can watch this later. I'll make sure you have the link. But anyway, these people have been really, really good. And this has gone on for quite a while. And we've been interacting with each other for some time. This goes back to, several years ago when Paul first started talking about mental health. And I started to talk about my own issues in mental health and my own struggles in life and all that sort of thing. And it was uncomfortable for a lot of people. I don't know why some people had sort of made me into some sort of perfect thing. I'm far from it. But, it was like, well, I started to talk about my real life. And then in about 2013, things really kind of went upside down for me as I had to sort of deal with the fact that my career had to come last. Agronomy had to come last. And then I had to take care of a dying parent. I had to take care of all the fallout around that, which that whole situation wasn't easy. It was difficult. It had affected me in ways I never knew that would affect me. I don't think that the world prepares sons and daughters very well for parents getting older. Good morning, Peter Taylor. Hello in the UK. So yeah, I don't think the world prepares sons and daughters very well for that kind of stuff. And for me, I wasn't prepared at all. And my mom was my compass. She was my best friend. She was my everything. She was just an amazing, amazing woman. And to watch her waste away and eventually pass away, and I had to be her full-time caretaker. It was an impact. It was an impact on my entire sphere. And I didn't take that impact seriously when my father had passed away about 10 years before that. I wasn't as involved with that. I wasn't involved with him. Mom was his caretaker. I kind of came in at the end, and it was more storybook, I guess I should say. And then, of course, she picked up the pieces and dealt with the wife and everything after that. And I went back to work. I went back to the road. And the thing that happened to me, I think, is that I just honestly didn't see all of the warning signs and all of the things that had been going on in my life for years before that. And I think I knew a little bit about the fact that I had been through some depression. I knew what depression was. I'd seen therapists. I'd seen some stuff like that. So I'd been pretty open with that with people close around me, but I just had no concept over what I needed to do, to take care of my own mental health in the time of a trauma crisis kind of thing. And it became very costly. And what ended up happening to me is that I ended up really not wanting to be on the planet, no matter what good was going on. And there was some good going on with all this too. I just felt like the world would be a better place without me. So eventually I attempted suicide. And I've talked about this. Golf Digest magazine last October, Ron Whitten did a beautiful piece on a whole bunch of us and what he perceived to be some of the behind the scenes stresses. And, I was one of those people. So was Miranda Robinson, Paul McCormack, all those people, that I just mentioned were part of that. Casey Koff from Trinity Fortis, also part of that. Great guy, Casey. Become a friend through all this. And what happened is when that article came out, is a ton of people reached out to all of us. A ton of people reached out to me for sure. I had hundreds of emails from people in the turfgrass world, from people in the business that I've been working in, that I've been loving on, that I've been doing it. And they said, man, I can relate. I deal with stress, anxiety. I don't know what to do with. I've had to deal with parents getting, the letters were multi-topic kind of thing. Is that a word? Multi-topic? I don't know. But let me tell you what, it was pretty serious. It was pretty serious. It was like, wow, you know, I've got a lot of people out here that they're looking at me and they're saying, hey, thanks for telling your story. Thanks for being part of all this. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, man. My life's a mess. Like, thanks, I've looked up to you for all these years, really. I think that's only because I'm 6'4", 6'5", whatever. I think I'm 6'4" now because I'm old. Anyway, the whole point of that is that we opened a lot of eyes. We got the conversation going and all that, and we had a lot of conversation around it all. And some of it was positive and some of it was very negative. I mean, there were a few people that said, hey, you just had a couple of bad days. Fucking get over it, right? I'm like, well, okay, that's what you think. And hey, good for you, by the way, for never having a major life event or anything like that. And good for you for never having an anxiety, depressing, kind of thing. I do. A lot of us do. And the stigma around it all, the stigma of just get over it, don't worry, be happy and all that was fucked up. It really was. And I saw so much of it in the Turfgrass world. And I thought, well, we're not going to do this. We're not doing it this way. We're not doing it this way. We're just not going to be like that. We're going to put this in the open. We're going to put the lights on it. We're going to stare this fucker right in the face, and we're going to talk to people about their lives and let them express if they need to express, or at least give them some support and say, hey, listen. I'm not a therapist, but what you're talking about, it's an emergency. And you need first aid. And I started to apply that analogy, to people. It's like, okay, what's the triage here? Is this, have you got a bump and a bruise? Oh, we'll kiss it and make it better, right? Weird thing to say about a male-dominated world. But we could say, well, if you're bleeding, maybe we ought to get you a Band-Aid. If it's a really big bleed, maybe we should do more. People do need a support structure. Yes, they do, Peter. Thank you very much. You're right. And I think, I think we started to have conversations with people that were really legit. And it's like, okay, what happened? And I tried to frame it, I tried to frame it in the, and Discord servers are great. Thanks for sharing that. We're going to go that way soon with this whole Turfgrass community thing. I'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, the point being is that we impacted a lot of lives. And I think my cohorts that were part of the whole Golf Digest thing, they were getting calls and emails and stuff too, right? So everybody was dealing with it. And they're like, yeah, I'm not a professional, but I can recognize when somebody's bleeding. I can recognize when somebody's hurt. I can recognize when somebody's, really getting to be down for the count. And that's how I started to frame it. What's the triage, right? What's the treatment that you needed? And here's the top level of that. And this is the one that nobody wants to talk about. But if you're a danger to yourself or to others, you need to go get help immediately. I didn't do that for years, right? I would pass in and out of these depressive episodes and I wouldn't tell anybody about it. Hey, I'm Superman. I'd be out on the road doing my thing. All smiles in front of the superintendent, all intensity, all brains. I could pull off, and then I would go to a hotel room at night and just come apart. Alcohol didn't fix that. I was never a very big drinker. My father was a dry drunk of, an alcoholic who'd been in recovery for a long time, and the few times that he fell off the wagon, it was pretty traumatic. So I knew drugs and alcohol weren't the way. I wanted to self-medicate, and I think I did sometimes. Like, I think, hey, a few beers or whatever when you're stressed. Yeah, but it never became a problem for me. It's a problem for a lot of other people, right? However you're wired. So, I just continued to listen to people's stories, and I wanted to come out and I wanted to speak about it. I think I was imagined I'd be in an article in Golf Digest, but I never imagined it would be, talking about, my crazy. Hey, here, I want to be in Golf Digest. It'll be cool. We talk about grass. No, we're going to talk about crazy. I'm making fun of myself. Listen, if this is the impact that I'm supposed to have, if this is the design for my life, I'm good with it. I really am. And now I'm going to tell a very personal story. It's as if the stories I was telling weren't personal enough. Now I'm going to tell a very personal story. I'm going to turn the music down for this because I haven't told this one before. A couple of close friends know, and now I'm putting it out for the world. Why? Because I want you to know simply that you're not alone. I want you to know that if you're dealing with this, and now, right, with COVID, with all the craziness that has gone on in the world, with the isolation that people have to deal with the stresses that they've had to deal with all of the things going on, the financial picture. And let's be real, the financial picture for a lot of people has been pretty spooky. Let's just say. Okay. Me too. I've done very little work in the turfgrass world because I haven't been able to get on an airplane and fly places at will. And I think a lot of us know what that's about, So I've had to figure out ways. Jersey, good morning. Good morning. Thanks for being here, man. We're doing the monologue thing. It may not be completely up your alley, but I just love that you're here. So yeah, so here's what happened. Here's what went on with me, man. I'm going to tell a story. So I was last December. We're going back to December of 2019 now. December, January, early January. I was super sick. I had this thing that wouldn't go away. As it turns out, my doctors believe now that, that I had COVID, that I was one of those early cases. I've been traveling some and I'd been exposed a bunch and all that sort of thing, Yeah, I know your deepest trauma. I've never seen your legs. That is so true. That's a great comment. So yeah, I was very sick through the month of December. Really, it started around Thanksgiving and it went clear through Christmas. And as I rolled into January of 2020, and again, nobody was talking about COVID, right? That wasn't a thing. It was just this, I just had this bad flu that wouldn't go away. And it got worse and worse. Now, let me back up and tell you that, for me, for my particular situation, I have a antidepressant that I take, and, there's a bunch of things I need to be doing to take care of myself, to keep depression, my clinical depression, under control. And there's no stigma to that. There really isn't. And if your head immediately goes, well, drugs, whatever, no. But whatever was going on with my body, the antidepressant was not working. And I started to spiral down. I started to really get into a very, very bad place. And what happens for me when it gets really bad is that I start to lose sense of what's real and what's not. When depression really, really hits me deeply, like, it's almost like I'm in an upright dream state. I don't know what's a distortion and what's, it's common as it turns out, but it's kind of one of those things, right? There's a clinical word for it, and it's a scary word, so I'm not going to use it. But it's common, it's common with sufferers of depression, and I'm like, wow, I'm not grasping reality at all here, and I feel myself slipping away. And when I get like that, it's like I don't want to be here. And in my 2 previous suicide attempts, that's the place that I was in when I was like, finally, hey, I gotta go. I don't know how to get rid of this pain. I just want to go. So here I am, January 5th, 6th last year, and I'm recognizing this. And I'm like, wow, I got shit to do. We got the GIS in Florida coming up. I've got work. I'm trying to make it work, right? Got a personal life I'm trying to take care of. A dog who depends on me. Dogs, animals, Shit, this is just getting bad. What am I gonna do, And I was like, you remember all that advice that you gave to other people where you said, hey, if you're a danger to yourself or others, you've got to get some help. And I, honest to God, I didn't exactly know what I was doing at this point. I was really, really in kind of the word is psychosis. Psychotic features, they call it. Depression with psychotic features. Okay, I said it. I'm like, I don't know which end is up. I also was still kind of sick, like I was still dealing with the whole I'm sick thing. So I went to see my doctor, my primary care physician. And let me just tell you, this woman's a saint. Dr. Heather Krebs, Centennial, Colorado, Inverness area. This woman is a saint, man. I mean, she's helped me through a whole bunch of health struggles, but when I walked into her office, she looked at me and she knew something was wrong. And I said, I'm not doing very good. I'm really sick. I don't know what's up. I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating. I don't know what I'm doing. And she asked me a bunch of questions, kind of the clinical questions, how many, and she said, Dave, you're having a depressive episode. This is bad. You need to go to the hospital. She said the word hospital. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not bleeding and stuff. My head was so out of it, right? And I was like, what are they going to do for me at the hospital? And she said, no. There's a mental health facility that I want you to go, and I want you to get evaluated and see. Oh, I get it. My doctor wants me in the loony bin. Oh, hey, fuck you. That was my first thing. And then I realized, of course that went away real quick. And I was just like, really? And she goes, yeah, you need to go right now. And if you can't, it's only a few miles away. If you can't drive yourself there, we'll get you there. We'll get you transported. What? She said, you're having a medical emergency and I can't treat you here. I have to send you where you need to be treated. Do you understand? And I'm like, okay, all right. So I go. I drive myself to a place called Denver Springs. It's a mental health facility. It's just, let's not mince any words here. It's a psychiatric hospital. And she had called, and so they knew I was coming, and I walked in the door, and, they said, here, give us your insurance card. And I sat for a few hours, and finally somebody came, and they asked me a million questions, and some of them I could answer, and some of them I couldn't. And they said, listen, you're having an emergency. And I'm like, okay, well, give me some pills and let me go home. And they're like, no, that's not how it works. But obviously you can do whatever you want to do, but our medical advice is, that you stay here and get some treatment. And I'm thinking to myself, what? Are you fucking kidding me? No, this is not going to be Dave's, one flew over the cuckoo's nest moment, right? It's not going to happen. But at the same time, I knew I was in trouble. And again, part of this is understanding that this is, reality isn't really with me. So I don't know. Is this a dream even? I don't know what's going on. So I listened to their advice, and they admitted me at Denver Springs. And I got strip searched. They went through, I didn't have a bag. I didn't take anything with me, but they still went through my wallet and everything, make sure I didn't have any drugs. It was crazy. It really was. And the first few hours were really scary. I was scared out of my wits. Because if it was a dream, I didn't want to have it. Wake up, wake up, wake up. And if it's real, this is fucking crazy, right? This is nuts. They didn't have a place for me on the floor that they wanted to put me on, or the wing or whatever that they wanted to put me on. So they sent me just to one other spot where the people there were a lot more in need than I was. There was some real heavy stuff going on. There were some sick people there. And, of course, in the moment, I'm like, hey, this isn't me. Like, get me out of here. And I said that to the nursing staff. I'm like, no, this isn't. And they're like, no, you don't understand. We're going to get you moved. This is where you're here right now. We're keeping an eye on you because, and I was a suicide risk, right? That night was insanity, and a lot of these people didn't ever sleep. And, I had a roommate in this kind of hotel room size kind of thing who was, coming down from a meth episode. So that was a little weird. He ended up being a really cool kid, young guy, nice guy. But there were some others that were, yelling, screaming. I mean, it was full on. One flew over the cuckoo's nest, and I'm like, what do I do? Do I sleep? One guy tried to take my shoes. Joe Harding, good morning. One guy tried to take my shoes. One guy, I don't know. It was just the stuff that got said to me. It was just otherworldly. And again, I thought, well, I don't know if I'm alive. I don't know. The next morning they moved me to where I was supposed to be. And it was just, a bunch of depressives like me. And I spent, 5 days there, in a pretty programmed kind of thing. And of course I'm seeing doctors and the whole thing. And I saw the doctor the first day too. And they're, here's what's going on with you. Here's what we're going to try. Here's what's possible. Here's what's not possible. Here's what you've got to do. You got to rest. You got to eat. You got to learn about yourself. You got to get over this emergency that you're in. And I did. About day number 2, I started to kind of come out of the fog a little bit. I don't think it was just the meds, but they had switched some things around for me. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, wow, what happened? Starting to feel like, like I'm okay, or I'm going to be okay, or there's some hope, So they released me after the 5 days of inpatient care. And then I went through 3 weeks of outpatient care where I went every day to class and stuff. And I learned a ton more, and I was around people who had been going through the same stuff. And let me tell you something. Part of the wing that I was on was the, what they called it, the heroes unit. It was veterans and cops and firefighters and stuff like that, first responder types and all that. Some of the coolest people I've ever met in my life who have just been through the ringer. And I became friends with a Denver police officer. And he and I went through classes together and all that sort of stuff. And he was the same age as me and had been through some really horrible shit. And in one of the group sessions when Officer Tony was sitting right next to me, I said, hey, I'm embarrassed about all this because, I'm a Turfgrass consultant. I'm a content producer. This guy's a cop. The hell have I got on him? I mean, he deserves to be dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, which is, again, part of my diagnosis. And they all were just on top of me immediately saying, no, Dave, you got to stop this. My therapist, him, everybody was like, no, it happens no matter what. PTSD, obviously has gotten this stigma because of, veterans and all that sort of stuff, but it happens, trauma happens to everybody in all kinds of different ways. And what I learned is that's why some people can handle, really, really ugly, horrible, tough situations. Some people can't. And some people handle them for years. Officer Tony told the stories about everything that he had been through, where he was just the hero in so many deals. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe some of the stuff he talked about. Domestic violence, bank robbery. He's unbelievable, right? He was a former SWAT team member, all this stuff. Guy was a stud. And he's like, listen, all of a sudden one day it was like a traffic stop that broke me. It was just the cumulative effect of my life, So I'm like, okay, I get it. I understand. And I've come to a much better understanding, So I'm telling this story. I'm telling this deeply personal, private story because, a lot of people said, hey, don't talk about this. Nobody will ever think of you the same way again. And I'm like, no, that's not it. And again, especially in the time of COVID, I've just, so many people have been through so much. And so, I think it's become important for me, not that I'm the Messiah or anything like that, but especially in the turfgrass world, it's like, hey, I just want to speak up about, if you're in trouble, get some help. Simple as that. Right, next week, this group of us, we're going to talk to turfgrass people. I don't know how many people are going to be watching. I have no idea. 100, 1,000, 5,000. I have no idea. And we're going to say the same thing. If you're in trouble, get some help. And then going forward, be mindful about how your situation is affecting your world. And if that situation is killing you, stop. Let me say that again. If that situation is killing you, stop. Figure it out. And so with that, I'm like, listen, I'm going to do this. We're going to talk about this stuff. I'm going to tell this story. This is going to be my first episode of the, of the morning setup. And I want to talk to all of you. And I especially want to talk to you younger turfgrass people. And I hope you're watching, listening, or whatever. And I hope you spread this around. Listen, yes, it's only grass. We like to say that a lot in our business. It's only grass, whatever. But this business can be really a grinder. It can meat grind you. There are so many things that are part of stresses and pressures. Long days, not knowing what's coming next, people problems, pressures from members, all those sorts of things. And so listen, you have to take care of this stuff. And if you're that person, who's starting to have depression, stress, anxiety, and all that, you've got to get some help. And the help is there. It's a little harder to access, but it's there. Coming right down to just walking into your family doctor's office and saying, I'm in trouble. Because as it turns out, they know what that means. They know what that's about. I'm pleading with you. I'm begging with you, now that here we are in winter time, right? In most of the world. I know some of you guys listen to me down under, and I appreciate that. But it doesn't matter. I mean, I get just as depressed in the sunshine as I do in the clouds, so it's like, I just want you to know that you're not alone with all this, that there is plenty of help out there for you. And that if you keep ignoring this shit, it will snowball and eventually really become a problem. And really becoming a problem can have a lot of really dire consequences. We watch the news a lot and we see famous people taking their lives. And everybody says, oh my gosh, oh, if we only knew. If they'd had only shared. Some of them are sharing about it and they still deal with it, but really, honestly, being a creative type person for me makes it, I think sometimes, more so because I tend to have some emotional, ups and downs anyway with all that. Hey, today I did something good. Yesterday I didn't do so good, At any rate, there's help out there for you, and this whole idea that there's something wrong with you, the stigma about all that sort of stuff. No, everybody has certain degree of mental health stuff that they've got to deal with, and everybody has the need to be healthy and mindful mentally. And it's taken me a long time to learn that. 55 years of my life, with a good, 40 of those years dealing with depression. To finally come out and say, hey, listen. There's a way through this, and it isn't just grinding it out, gutting it out, and it isn't just meds. It's the whole thing, right? It's taking care of your whole human and being a human, and that's a big deal. That's a really big deal, man. So that's the story of the day. That's what I wanted to talk about today. If you are needing some help, there are lots of resources out there. All you have to do is Google whatever, and you're going to get help. There are plenty of places to get help. Yeah, seasonal affective disorder is a real thing, says Peter. The winter is a real thing, and you live in the UK, so you know. That's a great comment. Thank you for that. I agree. Thank you, sir, for chiming in with that. That's a very, very, progressive thinking. And that's what we're trying to do here is, we're trying to progress. And that's my transition, that word progress. I'm progressing. The Turfgrass Zealot project is going to look different. Maybe a little bit more about this. The content that I create is going to be different. The things I'm going to say are going to be different. I just told this story that I just told. And the world around us is different. That's awesome, Peter. Peter says, for those of you that are just listening, that he gets hit hard by seasonal affective disorder every year, so he has systems in place to deal with it. That's awesome. Yeah, and that's what it is, right? Is being ready for the emergency. Trying to handle the emergency without any preparation is pretty tough. All right, one last thing to say. For those of you that don't deal with this, first of all, I envy you. Here's a couple of things I don't want you to do. I'm going to start with the things I don't want you to do. Don't ever say to somebody, hey, don't worry, just get happy when they're talking to you about being depressed. Don't. It's not how it works, and it just makes things worse. There are far better ways to be supportive than just blowing it off. If somebody comes to you for help, don't think that you're the therapist. Find a way to help them get help. Don't think of people who took suicide as a way out as cowards. They're not. Peter continues here. He says the first year was hard, but once you have the name, diagnosis is much easier to deal with. Yeah, exactly. When you name it, you know it. And there's a spiritual side to all this, and we'll get to that. I'm not gonna cover that today because I think that's its own thing. But it's an awareness, it's an awareness of what you can do and what you can't do. So this idea of thinking, well, they took the coward's way out. No, that's not how it works. That's a very immature and misinformed opinion. It's like that. It's not cowardly. You get to the point where you can't deal with it anymore and you can't feel better and you don't know any other way to feel better but to leave. Yeah, that's not about cowardice. I guarantee you, I've faced so many monsters. So many. All right, what to do? Somebody comes to you and they say, hey man, I'm dealing with depression. I don't know how to deal with it, So you help them, you encourage them to get some help. And that encouragement isn't necessarily just, well, see a therapist. In this day and age, it's really hard to get in with a therapist, right? Everybody's doing, appointments by Zoom or whatever and all that sort of stuff. If they're really emergent, in other words, if they're coming to you and it's they're not sure if they should be on the planet, then it's call 911. Here's the rule. It's real simple. If somebody's a danger to themselves or others, you call 911 and you activate that system, and the system knows what to do. The system can be a little brutal. It can be a little hardcore and can be really scary. And hey, I dealt with that. It was scary as fuck. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, you want to talk about a harsh reality, it's like, when you have to have all the drawstrings cut out of your sweats and nothing, your shoelaces taken out and all that sort of stuff because you might harm yourself with them, and because people who have been in that place have harmed themselves with those things, it's a harsh reality. When there's no surfaces that could, that you could hang yourself from or anything like that, I'm just being honest. when there's doorknobs that turn when they're first touched so that you can't do anything to yourself. I'm telling you, it's scary as fuck. It is. And yeah, that system can be a little brutal. You know, it can be kind of hardcore at first. But getting help often is. You know, it's like I remember you know, how many of us have watched doctor shows? You know, they bring somebody into the ER, they've just been shot or they're having a heart attack or whatever, and they go at it, man. They just go right at it. And get you fixed, right? Get you stabilized. Well, it's the same thing with mental health. It works the same way. It works the very same way. So I'm speaking to you. If you're suffering, get help. I'm speaking to you. If you know people that are suffering, help them get help. You don't have to help them by trying to be amateur armchair therapists. In fact, fucking don't. Don't think just because you don't experience it that you know shit about what it's like when you're going through it. Okay? And last thing for younger people, and I know there's a lot of young turf heads and young gamers and stuff that are watching, and it's like, listen, there is no shame in any of this. If you're hurting, if you're suffering, if you're feeling like you can't handle the world, if you're feeling like you would be better off somewhere else or better off dead, there's no shame in admitting that, dealing with it, and going forward. Yes, some people won't understand. Fuck them. Okay? Because it's worth it. And you know, look, I'm not going to sit here and say I have no bad days. I have bad days. But I have the realization about how that's going to work, you know? And that it's not going to last forever, and on and on and on. There is help out there if you need it. And if this has impacted you in that way and you feel like you need to reach out, then reach out. I am not going to be your therapist. I'm not trained for that. That's not what I do. That's not what I want to do. That's not it. But I will help you get your head straight so that you can find help. Anybody who's experienced this knows what I'm talking about. All right, so that's it, man. Let's transition. We've been at it for just about an hour here. And I wanted to keep these episodes to just that. What are we going to do? What are we going to talk about? I don't know. As I move forward with this, I think that things will fall into place. You know, one thing I always did with the Turfgrass Zealot Project podcast is I let things fall to me. You know, I didn't try to script stuff. I really didn't. I let it be what it's going to be. I'm not going to sit here and read a script to you guys, and I'm not going to plan all my episodes for the year and say, this week we're talking about this. And I knew what I was going to do today. I'm going to introduce myself. I was going to tell my story. I was going to encourage you to live your story. I was going to talk about what I'm going to do with all of this. I'm going to invite you to watch me stream on Twitch, to share in my content on the Turfgrass Zealot YouTube channel. And the Wilberforce also will have a YouTube channel. I'm going to have both. And the Turfgrass Zealot channel is going to have, you know, Turfgrass stuff, right? And Dave Wilber stuff, as I'm known in that world. And the Wilberforce is going to, you know, we're going to do gaming, and we're going to do, you know, some other things, right? Life, cooking, some of the things I love, right? Animals, music. And we'll share those things. I'm sure there'll be some cross-pollination, and I think the soup will be good. The stew will be awesome, I think. So, hey, my name is Dave Wilber. My friends call me the Wilberforce. Some of them call me the Turfgrass Zealot. There's calling me the Bear. I'm happy to be here. And I think we'll end the stream. If you've been watching live, I appreciate you so much, and much love. And if you're watching this recorded, the same thing, much love. I promise that this morning setup thing will not be as kind of heavy as it's been today. But I know this. I know that I just needed to kind of come correct from this space in my heart. And the hopefulness is this. The hopefulness is this, you know, in all of these challenges, we find greatness. And I have seen so much greatness in so many people. So many new people around me. People like Peter Taylor from the UK, who's just been fun to get to know. So many great people, so many great ways to get to know them. All right, I'm Dave Wilber. I'm the Turfgrass Zealot. This has been the morning setup. So long. Take care. Have a great day.